Hi, I'm Julie and I'm going to show you how to prepare the strawberries. First thing we're going to do is go to the walk-in cooler to get our fruit. One thing I want to mention is that there's going to be a lot of times where we'll have different flats of strawberries. So the way we put them in here, you want to take what's the closest to you on the top. Sometimes we'll have some flats over here too, but that is the stuff that was shipped most recently. So take what's on the top, and if you empty a container, always check if you empty the cardboard flat. You want to take that out so that can be taken out with the garbage. The same is true for the blueberries or anything else. Take what's in the front first and go from there. The first thing you want to do anytime you cut any kind of fruit is wash your hands. Then always wear gloves. Also, it's a good thing to have on an apron or a chef coat. And the reason for that is because when you always want to open the slider here and let the customer see you cutting the fruit. They always like to know that everything is freshly prepared. There's a lot of different ways to do things. This is probably just one of the faster ways and best ways to do it. Just take your fruit. I just pull off the green part from the end and keep the trash can right here, and I just do this real quick. Sometimes I'll just throw the greens right here. But you want to make sure you get off all the leaves. You always want to try and do things not fast, but there is a lot to do always, so try not to lollygag. Okay, so once you get your berries, always put a colander into the sink, and just, if you put too many berries in at one time, they won't get clean. And you want to make sure that you are getting, the berries covered with the water and rinsing them pretty well. I always just kind of tip it a little bit, get the excess water out. Make sure any green is off. Okay. For when we're cutting them, we want to have a deep dish, and for when we store them in the fridge, we can put this part in the bottom. Okay, you use one of the smaller knives, and you just take these, cut off the very end. You want to get all of the white off because that's harder and typically doesn't taste good. So then I just put them down on here. Sometimes you can't get all of the white off, and you don't have to cut them crazy short. Make sure if you have a berry like this, you want to get off any bruised parts, because if someone bites into that, it will be squishy. See one right here. If they're a little bit brown or whatever, just kind of get that off. Sometimes I cut the very tops off if they're white or exceptionally hard, or sometimes just very top though. You don't want to get crazy with it. And you don't always have to, it's just, after you cut off everything, both ends are cut, get your little scoop, and you just scoop out the white part. And I just throw them right back into this colander to save time from leaning over to the trash can. After you cut the tops off and you scoop them out, I just take them. It's usually just a couple cuts. Now if there's a wide berry, I might cut it twice this way also. You don't want the pieces to be too big, but you don't want them too small either. We've found that sometimes when they're too tiny, they get gushy, and just basically depending on how long the berry is or how wide. Depends on how many cuts. Okay, so when you're done cutting, they should look like this. Now, I want to talk about a couple other things with the strawberries. You do not always have to cut the whole entire thing. We don't want to get too many strawberries in containers like this in the reach-in, because if like it's in the middle of the week and we don't go through as many, they'll go bad, and so you don't have to cut the whole thing. Okay, now that we're finished cutting the strawberries, we're going to move on to the next fruit. So very important things you need to remember to do. This rag that you've used to cut whatever fruit you've just used really needs to be sanitized before you move on. There's strawberries, and a lot of times, especially mango, when you're cutting, you'll get chunks of fruit on here, so we have to sanitize this. The other thing that definitely has to happen is you either want to wash and sanitize the cutting boards, or just, if you're busy, go throw them back in the sink and get new ones. We usually have plenty of cutting boards underneath. So I want to show you real quick a good way to sanitize the rag. First thing you always want to do is rinse it with hot water. This, get out as many of the chunks as you can, if any. Use hot water though. And just wring it out. I like to hang it on the side like this. A lot of times you'll have red or whatever color from the fruit, and you can just spray it. And wring it and flip it over. And then you want to sanitize it. We don't ever like to stick the dirty rags in the sanitizer, because it gets the sanitized water really gross. So you can make sure the whole time you're doing anything in here, it's the hot water. So you can turn on the sanitizer, and then you can take that and squirt that on your rag. You can do the same thing, flip it, and then squirt this side. And then just squeeze it out, and you're ready to use it again. Sometimes the rags will be really bad, very stained. You don't want to use those again, because a lot of times if you cut and the window's open, customers can see in. If you think it looks gross, don't use it. But something like this, we can absolutely use again.